That would be
Sure.
great. Thank you.
I will do that.
Okay, super. All right. So I'm sure by now you've given some thought to actually writing this, what we call the legacy letter or Jewish spiritual memoir. And you've kind of been thinking about what you would like to include in it. So I have some questions that would maybe help you focus your thinking. What are your essential goals in writing your legacy letter? Is it to convey the importance of perpetuating Judaism into the next generation and beyond? Or is it to pass down your values, morals, and your ethics? Is it to teach your descendants a sense of the spiritual over the material? That a successful life is defined by more than just earning a living and raising a family? Is it to get your readers to think about the larger questions like, why are we here? How did I get here? What meaning and purpose is there to life? Where are we going when we die? Religion is organized around a set of beliefs and rituals that help us answer these deeper questions. Spirituality focuses on the non-physical, more intuitive aspects of life in order to understand its meaning. Both lead to transcending the self. And you probably are familiar with Einstein's famous quote, "Religion without science is blind, but science without religion is lame." What I get from this statement is that both science and religion are necessary in order to understand the universe. Science answers the questions of how, and religion answers the questions of why. How you derive your strength for the road ahead is a deeply personal choice, but ultimately, we're all spiritual beings, precisely because we're the only species on Earth which can contemplate its own death. Being on a path towards death from the moment we're born ultimately puts everyone on a spiritual path. The following questions will help you to start formulating your thinking on writing your legacy letter, or ethical will, or Jewish spiritual memoir, as we've called it. So let me ask you these questions. Who will be the recipients of your legacy letter? Your family, friends, future generations? Picture a great-great-grandchild you will never know. What would you want him or her to know about you and your life? Another question. What will be the central theme of your Jewish spiritual memoir as we started this class today? Expressions of love, your life values, spiritual values, your survival of Judaism. Do they dovetail? Is the importance of writing about the survival of Judaism equated with your values? Do you get your values from your love of Judaism? So they could be really one and the same. Each generation is formed by the culture and period of time when they lived. What wisdom will your generation leave behind as a legacy? Well, we've all heard about the greatest generation, those who came of age in the 40s. Then in the 50s, we have what's called the silent generation, when the young people were, pretty much following authority, and the biggest thing you could ever get in trouble for in class was chewing gum. Remember those days? How about the 60s, what we call the Woodstock or the we generation, the baby boomers generation. In the 70s, things got a little more selfish, so we call that the me generation. And then after that, I don't know, I get mixed up, Generation X, Generation Y, or the millennials, or the centennials, but every generation has its trademark, so to speak. So would you be adding that in your legacy letter, what you've learned from your generation? What concerns do you have for the next generation? What advice can you give them? Our passions and sustaining joys are what make life tolerable, even in the darkest of times, like what we're going through right now with COVID. So if you could write about what gives you great joy in life, what would you say? What accomplishments are you most proud of that you wish to share with others? What strengths and values do you wish to pass on to your progeny? And as Bert asked 2 weeks ago, when would you like your legacy letter to be read? On what occasion? So that's some of the questions that you may want to write about all these questions that I mentioned, or just a few of them, or even just one or two. But the whole point is to start to get you thinking about what is it that you would want to write. You know, when we give a last will and testament, we write about what valuables we want to leave to our descendants. What are we writing here? We're writing about our values, not just our valuables, but our values. And that's really, really important. Okay, let me just talk a little bit about memory, because that's what we rely on in order to write these things, especially as we go back into our childhood and we remember our first positive Jewish experience or any spiritual experience that we had. We have different types of memory. Very few of us are blessed with what's called HSAM, highly superior autobiographical memory. You ever heard of people like that? You can mention any date in their life and they know exactly what happened on that day. So I don't know, I'm pretty good with birthdays, anniversaries. I remember when my parents got married, when their birthdays were, and of those kinds of things. My grandparents' birthdays. My wife is not as good with that kind of thing as I am. So everyone has a different capacity for the things we remember. But whether you have HSAM, an average memory, or a memory that needs work, it's okay, because there are certain techniques for accessing your memory. We have two memory systems. One is short-term, one is long-term. You've all heard the expression, I can remember what I did 50 years ago, but I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday. And the reason is because what we remember from 50 years ago were important, salient, milestone events. And what we had for lunch, of course, really isn't that important. So we try to remember the important things from a long time ago. You know, one of my favorite sayings from Pirkei Avot, and we get this from the Gates of Prayer in the beginning section where they have all those selections from Pirkei Avot. Bert, I told you about that last week. It says there are 4 kinds of minds: a sieve, a strainer, a sifter, and a sponge. Which kind is the best? So, did we talk about all this last week?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Now you see, I can remember what I taught 50 years ago, but I can't remember what I taught last week. Mm-hmm. We did all this already. So now I'm going to give you a test. Which kind of mind did we say is the best? A sieve, a strainer, a sifter, or a sponge? Someone who soaks up everything, someone who forgets everything, or someone who keeps the golden material and lets out the dregs?
Yes, that one.
Yeah, okay, good, thank you. Good, you passed. Or a sifter. All right, we did all this then, that's fine. So some questions, did we go over questions that help stimulate memory? I don't think we did that, did we?
No, we left off where Rabbi Boxman had left, and she was supposed to give us the assignment.
Right.
And she had left.
And right, we're going to have that assignment today. So let me just give you some prompts that might help stimulate memory. The temple where I grew up, ... How would you fill out, what would you say about the temple where you grew up? The memories I have of my rabbi or my cantor, ... A Jewish experience which had a prominent effect on my life would be the Jewish holidays I liked the best, my favorite Jewish books or movies. So if you had to pick one of those things to write about, what would you say if you had that you wanted to express in your legacy letter? So once you've captured a few of your Jewish memories, you can reflect on them. What feelings do they evoke? Are these memories all positive, or do they have hints of doubt, sadness, anxiety? Remember these feelings when you write, and they will help bring your story to life. All right, so I have some questions that stimulate memory. Your first experience with Judaism and Jewish beliefs usually comes from your family. As a child, did you attend services at temple regularly? Did one or both of your parents participate in the synagogue? Did you ever question your beliefs during this time because something happened that forced you to confront them? 2, adolescence is a time of questioning, rebellion, and searching for answers. During your high school and college years, how did you view your Jewish spiritual beliefs? Were they changing in any way? 3, was there a time in your adult life when you fell away from your religious beliefs or practices? What happened, and was there a resolution? Have you ever had a significant Jewish spiritual experience? What happened? Did this reaffirm or change your original beliefs? Significant people in our lives often open doors for our continuing spiritual development. In your lifetime, have you had Jewish role models, either living or dead, who may have changed your beliefs and helped you grow? How are they important to you? Have you ever been pressured to change your Jewish beliefs? Have you ever tried to convert someone to Judaism and your own belief system? What were the outcomes? What are the core beliefs that you hold about yourself and your place in the world? How are they reflected in your life? And how have your Jewish beliefs and practices changed over time? So again, these are, any one of these questions can stimulate your thinking. It could be more than one, but you have to get, a kernel of an idea of what you want to write about before you can start writing, of course. All right, I want to share with you a couple of things that are personal to me. The first one is a letter that my father wrote to me 3 days after I was born. And I didn't see it for many, many years, didn't know it existed. And, I'll be honest with you, my father was a refugee from Germany, and he passed away when I was 19 years old. He wasn't particularly demonstrative. And I think, he was very bright and very accomplished, but he was not able to really, he had a hard time showing his feelings and demonstrating his affection and love. And I have to say, he's been gone now for over almost 40 years. And this letter that I have from him is so important to me, because he expressed feelings that he never did when he was alive. And sometimes we make that mistake. We think that our loved ones know who we are, and they often don't, because we just don't often express our deepest feelings to them. If I were to ask you, how many do your grandchildren really know who you are? For those of you who have grandchildren, do they really know you? I would say I have 6 grandchildren, but none of them really know me. I don't know. When I get together with them, I'm good ship lollipop. I'm Mr. Fun Guy or whatever. But I've never. They range in age from 5 to 13. I've never really had a serious talk with them, and they really don't know me. So, to me, this would be an important thing to write, this legacy letter, because that's something that, God willing, they would hold on to for many, many years after I go. Do your children really know your deepest values and beliefs? Have you sat down with them and told them? For me, this letter that my dad wrote to me was so important. And I have to tell you, when he passed away, I was 19, he was 61. I'm 65 now. When I turned 61, I went through this whole thing about, my God, I've outlived my dad. And all these years now are just, I'm on borrowed time. And it was just a strange feeling. And so for Yizkor that year in my pulpit, I wanted to tell this whole story and read this letter that my dad had written to me. And would you believe I couldn't find it? I couldn't find it. I had taken this letter. It was typed on. It was in blue type, like an old electric from the 50s. I put it in a folder. Could not find it. In that folder was the letter I had written to my son when he was born. I couldn't find it for 4 years. Finally, when I went through my stuff at Temple this year, I still couldn't find it. And I had gone through, one of my files was called Family Genealogy. I thought maybe it'll be there. I couldn't find it. Anyway, my wife was at the dumpster with all these files, and I'm looking at the last page of this file, and all of a sudden, there it is, my dad's letter. It was not the original, it was a copy about to go into the dumpster. So there was one. And then I'll tell you in a minute how I found the one that I read to my son, because I thought that was lost too. Here it is, written November 23rd, 1954, to Franklin Walter Mullen. Dear son, this letter would not have been written if your beautiful mother had not given me such a scare tonight, feeling as poorly as she does. So instead of celebrating the birth of my son, I am worried and got to thinking rather somberly about the future. I am sure your mother will be just fine in a few days. I hope you will be just wonderful 21 years from today. I know that the problem with which I am confronted is not unique. How to be a father and yet a pal. How to guide without dictate. I, as probably our forefathers before us and your children after us, will have to face the same problem. To be able to make you know that advice comes from experience, that the older generation is not just a bunch of meatheads, and the younger generation wiser and faced with a different set of values, able to guide itself. We all thought that when we were young. I did, and I feel cheated for it today because I felt as a boy and as a young man that I was self-sufficient, never in need of advice, able to judge good from bad by myself without help from anyone. I know that you will be able to do the same, but I should like to know that you do want to come sometime to talk to me about things, and that my experience will be of help. Above all, I pray today that I, as a man, will be of such caliber as to instill that sense of affection in you, which will always guide your steps to your father for any problem, small or big. For above all, I should hope to have a son who is the man I never was. That too, I suppose, is every father's wish. I will want to teach you that a young man's business is exclusively learning a set of values, learning how to accomplish more learning, to be a gentleman. Sure, the tough boys are the heroes in high school, but already in college, the gentlemen are the more respected and successful. I hope to have a son with breeding. Equality is not to be like the mob, but to try to elevate the mob to be like the gentleman. The scholar is still the most highly respected member of the responsible society, that portion of society which creates and which is the source of human progress. I want you to be spiritually equipped to be able to see that. The rest will be easy. It will be my responsibility to equip you to gain such an outlook. Your mother will probably do even more than I. She is more gentle and patient and more genuinely a person of character. You ought to be quite a guy, and we should be a proud and happy family. With so much gray matter at work and a good dose of faith in ourselves, you are going to be a good man. If I am wrong, I will be to blame. Your father.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, it was
What,
special.
what did your father do? Was he a rabbi or?
No, he was an attorney and he worked for the government. He was an appellate. He was a tax attorney for the government and handled cases to, get tax dollars from corporations and things like that. He was the only person who ever used the term gray matter. I never heard anybody say that. He always said, use your gray matter. Anyway, but he never said things like that to me when he was alive. This letter is what I hold on to as one of my most valuable things that he passed down to me. So, having this as a beginning, I continued the family tradition when my son was born. on October 25th, 1987. He will be 33 years old this Sunday. So, and I couldn't find this one either. I had handwritten it on a legal pad, and it was a sermon that I delivered the first Shabbat after he was born. And I put it away so carefully that I couldn't find it. Do you ever hide something that's so valuable and then you can't find it because you hid it too well?
Of course.
Anyway, I thought I'm never going to find this. And going through my old boxes this summer, because I brought everything to my house from Temple, I see my son's bar mitzvah service. We put together a creative service for his bar mitzvah in the year 2000. And I started thumbing through it, and on the first page is an ethical will to Julian typed out. So we used it as the first page for his bar mitzvah service. Again, not the original, but good enough, a copy. So, and I wanted to give both of these documents to my son on his 30th birthday, but I couldn't find them 3 years ago. They were lost. So I sent to him, and he'll get it this week, I sent him both my dad's ethical will that he wrote to me and what I'm going to read to you now that I wrote to him. Dearest Julian, your arrival Sunday, and if I plagiarized anything from my dad I've forgotten, please forgive me. Okay. Dear Julian, your arrival Sunday morning has given me one of the most joyous and happy weeks of my life. Your mother and I are delighted with the wonderful gift of your birth. In reflecting upon the various things that I've done in my life, I must say that being partly responsible for bringing you into the world is without question my most significant accomplishment. Being involved in the creation of a new life that will be part of the next generation is a feeling more special than I ever imagined. Continuity between the generations is something that is important to me. Like my father, who wrote a letter to me on the day I was born, in which he bequeathed to me some of the wisdom he had gleaned from 42 years of living, I too wish to express my love for you through a summary of the faith by which I have lived and some of the goals that I hope you will come to value and cherish in your life ahead. While I pray that you will continue something of lasting value and worth to the world, my main hope is that you should be a happy person, a joyful individual. Different people define happiness in different ways, but to me, happiness is more a state of mind. Money and possessions, while perhaps the fruits of one's labor, alone do not yield happiness and contentment. Far more important than financial assets are spiritual resources. The spiritual serenity that comes from being thankful for what is good in life, as well as remaining optimistic about the future, is a key to happiness which I hope you, Julian, will always possess. There has yet to dawn a day when I have not been able to give thanks unto God for some measure of his goodness. I hope it will be the same for you. Giving thanks for our blessings is correlated with helping those who are less fortunate. We best express thanks for what we have by sharing our bounty with others. It is the giving of tzedakah, whether in dollars or in deeds, which not only betters the lives of others, but enriches our own existence and deepens our spiritual resources. Julian, from this day on, I give to you all the love I am capable of giving. In return, I ask for nothing more than an honest attempt to be the best person you are capable of becoming. I promise to try to achieve that delicate balance between the desire to shape and influence the life of the son I love with the recognition of his own need for the freedom to discover his own direction in life. Your mother and I hope to pass on to you the beauty and value of our religious faith. When you reach the age at which you begin to pursue your own interests and goals, remember that no matter what you choose, we will always love you. Just believe in your abilities and have confidence in yourself, for nothing in this world can replace self-esteem and self-awareness. As part of a new generation, you are bound for a brand new day. This day, I am thankful for being granted the opportunity to walk with you at least part of the way. I relish the thought of watching you grow physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Throughout your life, may God bless you and keep you. May God show you favor and be gracious to you. And may God show you kindness and grant unto you peace. Your father, October 30th, 1987.
Beautiful also. Well,
Thank you. So my son is, and his wife will celebrate their second anniversary next month. And I hope that when they are blessed with child, that maybe he will want to continue this tradition, and hopefully he'll write a letter to his son or daughter or whatever it will be. So what am I trying to accomplish in sharing this with you? when you write from the heart and just express, and you may have to write a few drafts of it, get your main idea on paper in the beginning, and then you'll refine it as you go along. But as long as it comes from the heart, this is something we all can do. We all can pick up a pen and paper and write. And they always say actions speak louder than words, but remember, words preserve our actions. Words can preserve what we say, because if it's not written down, it will be forgotten. So that's why we're doing all this. Okay, let's flash up my Jewish life wheel cantor, please.
Is this the correct one?
Yes, that's it.
Perfect.
Okay, this is something I designed for this class. I also want to show you, I want to go over the Jewish identity spectrum, which was done for the Stars of David class. Because I want to, if we're going to write about our Jewish spiritual legacy, then we have to really get in touch with our feelings about our Judaism. So I designed the identity spectrum to help us focus. And if you took the class with me for Stars of David, you'll recall how we divided it up into 10 different aspects of my Jewish identity, from religion to social justice, to supporting the state of Israel, and we'll go over that next week. But this one is a little bit different. This is assessing your own Jewish self-image, your own Jewish commitment, and how connected you are to your Jewish faith. I've called this the Jewish life wheel. All right, you can't find this anywhere else. I designed it, so however good or bad it is, it's on me. But I'm hoping it'll help you a little bit to look at your Jewish identity, not just now, but different phases of your life too. So let me explain it to you. On the right, it says image meter. All right, and this is, if you look at, there's two wheels. Basically, it looks like a bicycle tire. And on the spokes, you have a certain set of terms. And then on the tire, you have another set of terms. So look at it as two different wheels. On the right side, where the spokes are, I have 5 terms: self-loving, self-conscious, self-doubting, self-loathing, and self-hating. All right, so these are 5 images that Jewish people have of themselves. Now, for anyone who's a member of Temple Shalom, for anyone who is taking adult education, obviously your Jewish identity means something to you, and you're probably going to be a self-loving Jew. You probably enjoy your Jewish heritage. You probably feel comfortable in your skin as a Jewish person. And I'm going to make that assumption, but that's not always the case. There's sometimes, even when we belong to a congregation and we're part of a Jewish community, sometimes we don't always feel that positive about our Jewish identity. I can tell you the time that as a rabbi, I was very self-conscious about my Jewish identity. And when I walked into a bookstore to buy Alan Dershowitz's new book, Chutzpah, which he wrote in the 1980s, it was a small town, not very many Jews. And what did the people in the bookstore know from Jewish? Garnish. So instead of saying chutzpah, what were they going to even, people who hear that, the CH, don't even know how to pronounce it or spell it. So I said, do you have the book Chutzpah? And I was embarrassed to say chutzpah because it was just too Jewish. And he looked at me and he said, sir, do you mean the book Chutzpah? I told this story for the Stars of David, but it gives you an example that even when we're practicing devoted Jews, sometimes we can feel self-conscious about our identity. And with what's happened in the last couple of years, with all the anti-Semitism, and it makes it, I think, it's schwer bis ein Yid. It's hard to be a Jew. And today that's more true than it's been in quite a number of decades, in my opinion. I think it's hard to be Jewish today with everything that's going on. So where would you rate yourself on the image meter? Are you a self-loving Jew? Are you a little self-conscious like I was in the bookstore? Are you self-doubting? Do you ever doubt that why God made you to be a Jew? Were you ever envious of the neighbors celebrating Christmas or Easter? And then we get to the difficult categories of self-loathing and self-hating. What is a self-hating Jew? What does that even mean? It's a term that's been around for some time, actually going back to the Enlightenment, when Jews first had the opportunity to become members of a larger society and felt envious of their non-Jewish neighbors. You know, before that in the shtetl, we didn't think about these things. But when we had the opportunity to join a society, some Jews resented being Jewish. And what it is, it's a psychological, sociological term. It's when a Jewish person feels the attitudes of non-Jews around him or her, which may be negative, and then projects that anger onto themselves because they feel a sense of inadequacy or low self-esteem as a Jewish person. And it can get to the point where it becomes dysfunctional and it becomes self-hating. A person actually hates their own identity because it may bar them from certain opportunities. Like when Groucho Marx said, I would never join a club that would have me as a member. Right? I mean, he's joking, but in a way, you know, it's that self-loathing. Okay? So, and this can change. This can change at various points in your life. Maybe there were times in your life where you weren't as sure about your Jewish identity as you are today. And would you be willing to share that in your legacy letter? All right, so that's the right side of the inner circle. The left side, how observant are you? This is your commitment meter. All right, are you an observant Jew? And by that, it's probably, someone who observes Shabbat to the T and is steeped in the tradition. That might be someone who's a little more orthodox or observant, traditional than we are. But you could, it's not an oxymoron to say that an observant Reformed Jew. It's possible. Some Reformed Jews keep kosher, observe Shabbat fully. They could be observant. Most of us are practicing Jews. Some of us are wandering. All right, those who are unaffiliated, who may be searching for an identity, not quite sure how Jewish they feel. The wandering Jew is a plant. All right, some are ambivalent, and then it goes all the way down to irreverent, Jewish people who just really do nothing and don't feel any connection at all. Where are you on the left side, on the commitment meter? Have there been times in your life where you've shifted between being practicing and being ambivalent? Maybe that's possible. And then on the outer wheel, we have different terms of also connection, ranging all the way from enmeshed, which you see at the top. So if you're a self-loving, observant Jew, you could very well be enmeshed in Jewish tradition. At the bottom, on the other end of the spectrum, if you're an irreverent, self-hating Jew, you're more than likely going to feel disconnected from Jewish tradition. And I'm sorry that should be probably turned upside down so you can read it better, that it says disconnected. And then on the whole scale, we have enmeshed, connected, questioning. All right, you may be questioning, especially now during this time of COVID. I'm sure we all had doubts about how could God allow this sort of thing to happen. And you can be a very devoted, practicing, observant Jew and still have doubts about God. So you see how these wheels, they can be turning at the same time in different directions. You could have one wheel turning clockwise, the other turning counterclockwise, and where they end up, it's sort of like the Jewish wheel of fortune, the Gilgal Mazel. Where will they stop? And they can change depending on the period of life that we're looking at, and especially how we are today. So we have all the way from enmeshed down to disconnected. We have from observant to irreverent. We have self-loving down to self-hating. And if you think that an Orthodox Jew can't be a self-hating Jew, you're very wrong. Just look at the series Unorthodox on Netflix. You have a whole story of a woman trying to break free from the Hasidic community. And there are many Jews who are Orthodox, who live in Crown Heights or wherever, who may have negative feelings about being Jewish. And that's the underbelly of the Hasidic world, which they never talk about, and which this movie so boldly brought forward. So that's just, take a look at the Jewish life wheel, and how would you rate yourself? And that's something to think about. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit next week. Okay, so let's move on now. And well, first of all, does anyone have any thoughts or comments up to this point?
I have a question.
Yes.
What if you're self-loving now, but at one time you were self-doubting?
Yes, that's exactly why I introduced this Jewish life wheel, because I wanted to help you focus your writing. And it's perfectly okay to reflect on that, you recognize the importance of Judaism in your life now at this juncture in your mature years. But when you were a college student, you broke away from Judaism and you took a class in Eastern religions because you were thinking about being a Jew and you weren't sure what your commitment was. And that's okay. I want to get the point across that this whole thing doesn't have to be Pollyannish and over and just glowing with positive evaluations of your Jewish faith. It's so good to share times when you were ambivalent about your Judaism or perhaps self-doubting about your Judaism, because kids want to be affirmed in the doubts that they have. And how better to do that than to hear from someone they love and respect who's gone through life that this is normal. So this is what I want to get across, is that our commitment, our self-image about being Jewish hasn't been the same throughout our whole life. And if it has, then say it, that's okay. But if it hasn't, don't be afraid to put it out there. Because, look, we don't want to tarnish the pristine image that our grandchildren or great-grandchildren have of us, for the most part. But it's okay a little bit. It's okay to share some secrets that you might have kept, under your vest for a long time. Use your judgment about what you want to share that you think that your descendants will be comfortable with. But to just whitewash everything and say everything is wonderful and there's never any doubts or rough patches that you go through, that's being disingenuous, I think, in my opinion. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, well, what about the difference between Judaism and God? If you have doubts sometimes about God, does that mean that you have doubts about your Judaism as well?
Did Abraham, do we think less of Abraham because he challenged God? There's so many stories of Hasidic Jews who got angry at God because of the injustices in the world. Absolutely not. I think it's healthy to be angry at God as opposed to just have no feelings about God at all. I'd rather have someone say they are so mad at God for what God did. God made their loved ones sick. And why did God do that? At least there's a relationship there. It's healthy to have times in your life where you have doubts about God, or you're even angry about God, because it shows that you have a connection with God. Just like you get angry or upset with a family member or a friend. That's what happens with God too. It's okay. It's part of being Jewish. Any other questions or thoughts?
Well, Frank, you had mentioned the letter, which they were both beautiful. I had done that for an uncle who treated me like a son when he was ill. And when my father was hospitalized, I wrote a letter as well, and I found it very fulfilling.
Great, good.
And you asked on the earlier sessions what your first thoughts were relating to Judaism. And I thought of a tradition that doesn't seem to be taking place now. I just remember as a little kid, maybe 4 years old, 3 years old, and my parents got dressed up in their new suits and their new feathered hat that matched the dress. And it was important to really dress up and look good for the high holidays. And it was kind of a tradition.
Yeah,
Not so much now.
that's great. Well, and these are things that you can write about. And, you know, how lucky are those of us who have any kind of, you know, written document from a relative or a loved one. And it's something that we have the power to do. So that's great to hear. Okay, any other thoughts before I want to move on to one other important topic today.
Would you like me to take this off the screen?
Yes, you can do that. Thank you, Cantor.
Okay, sure.
Oh, for goodness sake. Now, you know what? I did not bring the book in here. Well, let me get the book. I'll be back in 1 second.
Was she on here before?
No, she's recently.
And it is true. It was very hard to get in here today because there was no notice. Usually they send a notice before before this meeting, and I think there were a few people who could not get in here, and that's why it's so small. You're muted.
How's this?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay. How did you get in?
I went to the last temple that was sent last Thursday or Friday, you know, with all how to get into the Shabbat services and such.
Yeah.
And it was there, and the Zoom was there, and that's how I got in. But I had a little problem getting in also.
I finally got disgusted, and I went to my home screen, and I just out of annoyance put in Zoom, ZOOM, and it came up, and it asked for the meeting number, which I had, and boom, I was in.
Yeah.
By putting in the meeting number 944, whatever it was.
But usually they send a notice on Tuesday or such.
Right.
And there was no notice this week. That's why, because I know a couple of people who would have been here.
Yeah.
Who was here?
I think so too. I think a lot more people would have been here. It took me a good 10 to 15 minutes to figure out how to get in.
Mm-hmm. Cantor, you're muted.
I am.
I will make sure to get a notice out for next week.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. You know, when Rabbi Boxman and I discussed doing this
Send it to me.
workshop, it had really not been done before. And I really didn't know what we were going to do exactly because it was kind of inventing the wheel on this. And 3 weeks before, a couple of weeks before, I just wasn't sure because I had Googled writing your own Jewish story and nothing came up. And I told you I went to Barnes and Noble and I got a book on legacy writing. But the first week of the workshop, Dave Rutstein sat in on the class and he called me later and he's been working on he's been doing ethical will workshops in the neighborhood community. And he introduced this book to me. But can you see it?
No.
Yeah, well, anyway, it's called The Forever Letter, Writing What We Believe for Those We Love by Rabbi Ilana Ziman. And it's a fabulous book. And what I'm trying to get across is that for all the terms we've used, ethical will, Jewish spiritual memoir, legacy letter, the best title that I have found, it's a forever letter because it's something that can last forever. This book, I have to tell you, has been a godsend. And I'm so grateful to Dave for recommending it because it just, it opened up the whole subject of writing your Jewish story. And to have a book written by a rabbi was a real plus. And I mean, this book is so wonderful. It was like reading a book by Harold Kushner, which is, it's entertaining, it's easy to read. It not only helps you to write the forever letter, but it helps you to live a better life. It's just a fabulous book. And I wanted just to go over a few points with you for this week and most of next week. because it's a book that really each of you should get a copy of, because of just how it'll help you to write your own forever letter, and also just what she talks about just walking the walk instead of talking the talk. She talks about, first of all, the lost art of letter writing and how we've lost that today with the preponderance of texts, tweets, and instant messages. And it's so true. Kids today don't write letters anymore. And we hardly write letters anymore. We're writing mostly emails these days. But Rabbi Ziman makes the point that all the letters that we've gotten in our lifetime are still valuable. And this hit home for me, because this summer, as I was going through all my worldly possessions, I'm a saver, all right? Some will say I'm a pack rat. Some might even say I'm a hoarder. I'm not a hoarder. But I have saved pretty much everything from my whole life. I came across birthday cards when I was 2 years old that were in perfect condition, and I have trouble parting with them. My wife is a throwawayer. She says, "Why are you keeping all this stuff? Get rid of it." Well, I've had trouble getting rid of it. And I found letters from kids from summer camp, when I was a counselor, from college. And it was so hard to part with some of these, but I had to. And then I get this book which says all the letters you've ever received in your life are so important. Just to be able to go over them, reread them, it brings back memories. And it just, it made the case that I wasn't totally off base in wanting to keep all these letters, because they're people's feelings that are expressed that you can go back to all the time. So she spends quite a bit of time talking about just how all the letters that we have received over the years are worth keeping to some extent. And how much we have lost when we stop writing letters. You can't reread a phone call. That's a quote from an author that she mentions. So what is the forever letter? It's a heartfelt letter that we write to the people who are most important to us, with the hope that even if the letter itself isn't kept forever, the wisdom and love that we share will be. Forever letters reach beyond the scope of an ethical will. They can be written at any time in honor of a special milestone occasion, a special birthday. We don't have to wait until we're old or dying. When I was ordained from rabbinical school, my mother did a whole book that was a poem with pictures of me throughout my whole life to that point. It was an amazing gift. We can do that for special occasions, for birthdays, for, if you happen to have a poetic bent, you can write a poem. Some of you may do that already, but these are all sort of mini forever letters that are very special that we can do. Why are these not the best times to write a forever letter when we're old or dying? Because when you write a forever letter, you want to be somewhat upbeat and optimistic about life. It could be hard to write when we're physically suffering or mentally compromised or emotionally depressed. The forever letter is similar to the ethical will in that it contains the following: the desire to communicate what we believe to the love, a sense of urgency to put our words on paper because we don't know how much time we have, a chance to share our personal experiences, histories, and stories, to highlight our values, to forgive, and to ask for forgiveness. Wow, how about that? Sometimes a letter is an opportunity to express what we can't say face to face. It's a chance to state our ultimate truth, to offer blessings, and a hope that our words will be read for years to come. We not only benefit future generations from the forever letter, we benefit ourselves by increasing our desire to live our values with greater intention, by better understanding ourselves, by making ourselves known to the people we love, and by healing what may be broken between us. Think about that. Sometimes if you write down what your values are, it gets you to think, well, gee, maybe I'm not always living up to these values all the time. Maybe sometimes I'm rationalizing bad behavior and saying, well, it's not really me. But when you write it down, you realize, to it. The forever letter is a perfect container for our most precious non-material possessions, our beliefs, wisdom, love, appreciation, forgiveness, and more, and showing how the process enriches, grows, and helps us push ourselves to become our best selves. So let me ask you a question. How many of you are seriously starting a Jewish spiritual memoir or forever letter? How many of you have, some of you shared a little bit about what you wrote last week about your most important Jewish experience when you were young. Anybody write a little more? Anne?
Oh, I don't have it with me. I did.
You did.
I just really got me thinking.
It did.
Should I get it and I can read it later? Should I go get it?
I'll tell you what, why don't you plan on reading a little bit of it for next week?
Okay.
Okay, all right. How about the rest of you? Has anyone, has this workshop so far helped you to decide maybe this is something that you want to do, or where are you now with the project? As opposed to
I'm still in the middle. I have all the notes, you know, and all, but I'm not sure that I'm quite sure I'm going to do it yet.
Okay, all right, and that's fun because, you know, unlike the ethical wills workshops where I think there's 2 parts over a period of months, we're gonna, this is 4 weeks and then we stop and then the rest is up to you. So unless we decide to do a continuation at some point down the road, it would be up to you to actually finish it on your own. Okay, Bert, how about you and Sandy?
I've gathered some thoughts. We haven't put it in writing, but I'm always the one at a family gathering that after we get done with our prayers, especially on Shabbos, we talk about the good things that are happening in our lives and how important it is to share and love one another. And my eyes get rolled very often, but I'm continuing to deliver pertinent speeches.
I think the grandkids are like, oh no, here we go again.
Sure. Well,
I plan on writing too. I have a little bit of a start, but haven't gotten quite there yet, but definitely will do it.
well, if I can convince all of you of one thing, it's that whatever the grandchildren may not appreciate today, they will value greatly tomorrow when they're older, and they will have this that we gave to them. It's a great gift. David, how about you? Anything you want to say? You still there? I don't see your face.
I'm still here. My video got all screwed up, so I don't know what happened. I'm still here listening. I was in the ethical will class, and I started something a while ago, and I've written a letter in terms of what am I looking for now in terms of my condition at the present time. What do I want my kids to do or not to do? But I need to write something for the grandkids because I have 7 grandchildren. I've got very close relationships with 5 of the 7, and which I guess that's pretty good. But I need to write something that about me, not about them.
Mm-hmm. And maybe the 2 who would benefit most from it are the ones in which your relationship has the opportunity to grow.
I tried something like that with 1 or 2 and got no response whatsoever. Communication just terminated. So the problem with that is I don't know why.
Yeah, and just remember that the state of a relationship today may not be the state of that relationship tomorrow. So you do everything you can, even when you think it's hopeless. But that's for another class or another time.
Yes.
Anyway, I want to flash a little legacy tree that is going to be somewhat of an optional homework assignment for you next week. And I'll ask Cantor to show it on the screen now. Okay.
Hello. I just got off the phone with Mark Chernesky. He was telling me about the
This is called a legacy tree, and
Last night,
I'm gonna ask for, if you can please mute yourself if you're speaking in the back. Thank you.
Use the hair dryer. Didn't even make a noise.
Yeah,
Can you mute yourselves if you're speaking in the back so we can hear Rabbi Mueller? Okay.
Okay, thank you. This is called the legacy tree. And we may, even if we, have drawn stick figures our whole life, we can all draw a tree. But this is something that can help stimulate our thinking about what we might want to write in a forever letter. At the bottom on the roots are the gifts and the talents that we inherited from our parents, our grandparents, our predecessors. So on this particular tree, we have intelligence, we have something, red hair, do your best, frugality, strength, morals, values, faith, good health, energy. These are the gifts that whoever did this legacy tree felt that they got that they learned or was handed down to them from their parents or grandparents. All right. Then on the trunk of the tree is our evaluation of our own talents that we feel we've developed ourselves. So this person, I'm turned sideways, determination, creative, responsible, energetic, morals, intelligence, athletic, busy. So and I read these and I thought, boy, that's pretty close. That's almost like a self-description. I love those terms. So what are the qualities, strengths that you feel that you have yourself? And then on the leaves and the branches are what we feel that we have bequeathed to our grandchildren and our children, or our hopes for them. So we look at that and we see athlete, artist, perfectionism, intelligence, agility, artistic. Can't quite read the one at the top, but you get the idea.
Wow.
Flexible, red hair, loyal. So whether it's physical, genetic traits, or just qualities of character, that's what this assignment is about. It's to just write down a few ideas about what we got from our forebears, what we feel we've brought to the world, and what we feel we've bequeathed to the next generation. So it's an optional assignment. If you would like to do it, we won't flash your artwork on the screen, but you can read it to us, whatever you've come up with, if you'd like to do that. All right? Yes.
I have a major problem with the tree.
Okay.
If the tree is alive, the leaves and are facing the sun. The fact that they're drooping is a very sad tree to me.
Okay. Good question. You can make whatever tree, but just remember that when the leaves die and fall to the ground, they replenish the earth for the next spring. So,
I understand, but this is something I've gained from the past. I've added to it, and the leaves reaching to the sky is the future. The fact that leaves are going to fall to the ground and die is not the picture I would like to present.
we are anxiously going to await what tree you come up with for next week. We're going to look. We want to see.
Okay.
Very good. Good point. All right. We'll end on that note. Thank you for attending. And next week we hope we'll get a few others who could not make it this week. So thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
The book is called The Forever Letter by Ilana Zaiman, Zaiman. It's a fabulous book. You can find it on Amazon for just a few dollars. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Cantor.
Take care, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.